You want to own an airline, not fly planes. Own the airline itself. The brand, the routes, the gates, the loyalty program, the entire machine responsible for moving millions of people through the sky every year. From the outside, it looks like one of the great businesses. 4 billion passengers annually, airports packed every day, tickets selling out on popular routes weeks in advance, the largest carriers generating tens of billions in revenue. And yet, airline companies go bankrupt so often, the industry treats collapse like a recurring weather event. Swiss Air in 2001, XL Airways in 2008, Air Berlin in 2017, Thomas Cook in 2019. After 178 years of continuous operation. During COVID, entire fleets sat grounded in deserts while airlines burned through millions of dollars per day, doing nothing at all. The planes were immaculate. The revenues had disappeared. After more than a century of commercial aviation, most airlines still barely make money. Here is why. The first thing you need to understand is that airlines are not transportation companies. They are fuel companies operating transportation infrastructure. Fuel runs between 25 and 35% of total operating costs depending on oil prices, making it typically the single largest expense in the business. And airlines have almost no control over it. One geopolitical event in the wrong region, one OPEC decision on a Tuesday afternoon, one disrupted shipping route. The entire economics of your airline change overnight, and there is nothing operationally you can do about it except absorb the hit or hedge imperfectly in futures markets and hope you guess the right direction. This is why airlines optimize obsessively over things that look trivial from outside. Wing shapes, engine configurations, seat materials, the precise amount of drinking water loaded per flight, the angle of descent on approach to save thrust. Every extra kilogram of weight burns fuel across thousands of flights, and the math compounds into real money. A Boeing 777 burns 6 to 7 tons of fuel per hour on long-haul routes. At current jet fuel prices, a single international flight can cost tens of thousands of dollars in fuel alone before a passenger boards. Multiply that across 500 daily departures, and the sensitivity to oil price movements becomes the dominant financial variable in the business, sitting above labor costs, above maintenance, above almost everything else. The second thing most people do not realize is that airlines typically do not own their aircraft. A new Airbus A350 costs around $300 million depending on configuration. A Boeing 787 similar. Even narrow-body aircraft like the 737 MAX or A320 neo cost over $100 million before manufacturer discounts. No airline wants to purchase entire fleets outright. The capital requirements would be impossible, and the flexibility would disappear. Instead, the aircraft leasing industry handles ownership. Companies like AerCap, Air Lease Corporation, and SMBC Aviation Capital buy planes and rent them to airlines under long-term agreements. AerCap alone owns over 3,700 aircraft, making it one of the largest holders of aviation assets on Earth. Most passengers have never heard of it. This structure creates a specific vulnerability. Lease payments are fixed contractual obligations. They continue whether passengers are flying or not, whether fuel is affordable or not, whether the economy is expanding or collapsing. During COVID, airlines globally were paying billions in lease obligations for aircraft parked in the Mojave Desert and the Spanish interior, with their engines wrapped in protective covers. The planes were not moving. The invoices were. That single detail, fixed costs against zero revenue, is what destroyed companies that had survived recessions, wars, and fuel shocks over previous decades. The pandemic did not create a new business problem. It exposed the one that was always there. Then there are airport slots. Major airports do not work like open infrastructure where any airline can arrive and use the runway. At constrained airports, Heathrow, JFK, Schiphol, Haneda, Frankfurt, the system runs on slots. A slot is permission to land or depart at a specific time. The number of slots is fixed by physical capacity. Demand for them vastly exceeds supply at every major hub. Slots at Heathrow have changed hands for figures exceeding $50 million informally. The official slot trading rules are complicated and country-specific, but the economic reality is that a valuable slot at a constrained airport is worth more than most aircraft. Because without the slot, the route does not exist regardless of what equipment you operate. British Airways controls nearly half of Heathrow's available slots. That concentration was built over decades and is nearly impossible to replicate from scratch. New airlines can obtain aircraft, hire crews, build booking systems, and develop routes. But accessing the schedules that make those routes commercially viable at major hubs requires either buying slots from existing holders or waiting for regulatory processes that move slowly and favor incumbents. Aviation looks like a competitive industry from the outside. At the slot level, it behaves more like a series of protected positions that compound over time in favor of whoever got there first. Governments make the economics stranger still. Airlines are private businesses that become public problems whenever they fail. During COVID, governments globally spent over $200 billion supporting airlines through direct aid, loan guarantees, and equity injections. The political logic was straightforward, even if the financial logic was complicated. Airlines are embedded in tourism, trade, business travel, and supply chains in ways that make their failure immediately painful across sectors that have no obvious connection to aviation. When Swissair collapsed in 2001, the Swiss government organized an emergency rescue within days because the national implications were too large to absorb quietly. The industry exists in a permanent middle ground between market capitalism and state dependency. Profits in good years belong to shareholders. Disasters in bad years become government balance sheet problems. That arrangement has persisted for a century because no government has found a politically acceptable alternative to it. Maintenance is the relentless cost that does not appear in the advertising. Aviation is the most heavily regulated transportation industry on Earth because failure is not recoverable at 35,000 feet. Every aircraft operates under mandatory inspection schedules that escalate in intensity with age and flight cycles. Daily checks, weekly checks, A checks every few hundred flight hours. C checks every couple of years requiring partial disassembly. D checks every decade requiring the aircraft to be essentially rebuilt from the inside out. Interior removed. Wiring inspected run by run. Structural components analyzed for fatigue. Corrosion treated. Systems rebuilt. A D check on a wide-body aircraft can cost several $1 million and take months, during which the aircraft generates no revenue while the operator still carries its financing costs. Aircraft age badly in financial terms, even when they age well mechanically. New jets are fuel efficient but expensive to finance. Old jets are cheaper to carry, but burn more fuel and need more maintenance. Neither end of the fleet age curve is comfortable. Airlines are permanently caught between two forms of cost pressure with no neutral position available. Most airlines barely make money from flying passengers. The business that actually sustains them is less visible. Loyalty programs are worth more than the airlines attached to them in some cases. During COVID, when United Airlines needed emergency financing, it used its Mileage Plus loyalty program as collateral. The lenders valued Mileage Plus at $21 billion. United's entire market capitalization at the time was less than that. An airline used its points currency to borrow more than its own equity was worth. The mechanism behind this is the credit card partnership. Banks pay airlines for miles in bulk to distribute through co-branded credit cards. Customers spend on cards, banks buy miles, airlines receive cash before a single seat is booked or a single flight departs. The revenue is advance payment against future travel obligations that a percentage of customers will never actually redeem. During economic contractions, consumers may stop flying, but credit card spending is more resilient. Some airlines are effectively operating financial businesses that happen to also run aircraft. Low-cost carriers restructured the passenger side of the industry by treating every possible service as a separate revenue line. Ryanair, Spirit, Wizz Air, EasyJet. The model is straightforward: sell the base ticket at a price that attracts maximum volume, then recover margin through baggage fees, seat selection charges, priority boarding, onboard sales, and partnerships with hotels and car rental companies. Ryanair's ancillary revenue per passenger has grown to the point where the ticket itself is partly a customer acquisition mechanism. The airline once explored charging for lavatory use. The proposal was withdrawn under public pressure, but the underlying logic was entirely consistent with the business model. The average global airline net margin in a normal year runs between 2 and 5%. Some years it turns negative across the industry simultaneously. A coffee shop often earns better margins than a carrier operating hundreds of aircraft across dozens of countries. This compression is structural rather than cyclical. Competition prevents airlines from raising prices enough to protect margins when costs rise. Customers search fares across every provider simultaneously and consistently choose the cheapest acceptable option. The internet commoditized the ticket before airlines had built businesses resilient enough to survive commoditization. The supply chain creates concentrated risk that the industry has never adequately addressed. Commercial aviation globally depends on two aircraft manufacturers, Boeing and Airbus. That is the effective choice. When Boeing's 737 MAX was grounded following two fatal crashes, airlines that had structured their fleet expansion and retirement plans around MAX deliveries had no alternative source. Routes were cut, expansion programs were delayed. Leasing costs for available aircraft rose because the supply of alternatives was finite. Entire airline strategies unraveled because of decisions made in a factory in Renton, Washington. China is attempting to break the duopoly through COMAC. Russia tried through the Sukhoi Superjet program. Both efforts have faced the same obstacle. Aviation certification, global maintenance networks, pilot-type ratings, and regulatory recognition take decades to establish in markets where airlines need global operational flexibility. The barrier to entry in aircraft manufacturing is not capital. It is accumulated institutional legitimacy that cannot be accelerated. Boeing and Airbus did not become dominant quickly, and they will not be displaced quickly. Warren Buffett spent decades publicly avoiding airlines. His reasoning was consistent. The industry had destroyed more investor capital across its history than it had created. In 2016, he changed course and invested billions across the four major U.S. carriers. The position represented a thesis that consolidation had finally made the industry structurally sound enough to hold long-term. In 2020, he sold the entire position at substantial losses and said the pandemic had changed the industry in ways he could not reliably forecast. That public admission meant something specific coming from someone who rarely acknowledges investment errors in detail. Even the most experienced capital allocator in modern finance could not model what the industry would look like on the other side of COVID. The variables were too numerous and too interconnected. And yet demand for air travel keeps growing across decades. Recessions interrupt it. Pandemics collapse it temporarily. Wars reroute it. But the underlying human appetite for movement, for tourism, for family connections, for business, for the basic experience of being somewhere else, has compounded upward across every decade of commercial aviation history. That long-term demand is the reason capital keeps returning to an industry that has destroyed so much of it. The winners when they emerge can be exceptional. Emirates turned a geographic accident, Dubai's position between Europe, Asia, and Africa, into one of the most profitable aviation businesses ever constructed. Singapore Airlines built a brand premium that sustained margins competitors could not match. Southwest maintained consistent profitability for decades through operational discipline that most airlines studied, but few replicated. The winners understood something the failures usually did not. The airline business is not about the romance of flight, the elegance of the uniforms, or the prestige of the routes. It is about cost per available seat mile, aircraft utilization rates, fuel hedge ratios, and slot portfolio management. The advertising shows champagne above clouds. The actual business is fuel contracts, lease negotiations, maintenance scheduling, and the permanent attempt to keep 2% margins alive while billions of dollars of machinery cross oceans every hour. It was never really about flying. It was about surviving long enough to keep flying tomorrow.